a little blaster, I'm going to call it. A unified field blaster on Blog Talk Radio. So check it out tomorrow night, 7:30 p.m. Tune in to the internet, where it's global. It'll be very interesting indeed. So what's new in the world of UFOs? Well, there's all kinds of stuff going on. I mentioned a bunch of stuff earlier. January 25th, there was a video posted about a Mexican UFO. I'm just trying to see here. Where is it? Oh, this one here. Yeah, January 25th. Yeah, that's what it was from, allnewsweb.com. And basically, it was a video of a UFO in the sky that was taken kind of a little bit outside the area of Chichen Itza. Of course, Mexico is just world-renowned as a hotspot for ufology. I always mention Jaime Maussan, Mexico's version of, the 60 Minutes host of Mexico, basically. And he's on top of everything. He can get a little flighty sometimes, don't get me wrong, but he's always right at the edge of the news. He's always right there to grab news as it comes off the wire, and he's always presenting and writing. He's all over the world on media everywhere. So Mexico's a hot spot, and this one is very curious. It almost reminds me of the Haiti UFO. And I just got into a podcast called Solely Jay's Podcast on iTunes, because I try and make sure I just fill myself up to the brim with paranormal content left and right. And Solely Jay, I was listening to an episode where he thought the Haiti video was real, and then another episode he came back and said, "Oh, I'm sorry, it's been proven to be a hoax." And I know for a lot of people that would have been really easy. That Haiti UFO on YouTube, which has got something like 15.5 million hits now, is very impressive. I know when I first saw it, I scratched my head a bit. I mean, although I knew right off the get-go it was a hoax. It was just too good, too clean. The audio for it was pretty remarkable. The reactions of people just didn't seem legitimate to me. But that's just me. A lot of people were taken back by it, and Solely J was one of those guys. But it's easy. The caliber of the video is fantastic. I want to say thanks out there to Solely J. We've been having some communications about trying to get some RRS feeds of the Unified Field up there on iTunes. He's been a big help to me. But I wanted to make reference to that Haiti video because it's so easy in this day and age for fake videos to get legitimized as real ones, because there are people out there and software programs that just make it so amazing with the physics engines and 3D engines they have in media now to create this content. So that being said, this Mexico video reminds me of kind of this Haiti thing, because the quality is fantastic, but the reactions of people seems pretty genuine, and the zoom in and out seems pretty genuine. But when you look at it, there are these kind of like spiral arm sort of appendages coming out of it all the way around, like a circular saw blade, which makes me wonder if this thing is real or not. But if you put in January 5th Mexico UFO in the YouTube search, it'll come up. I'm not going to give you the link because it's got a bunch of numbers and an equal sign, and it'll just be ridiculous. No one will ever be able to copy that down. So maybe in the show notes I'll post it, but I'll leave it to Google God to have you go there and check that out for yourself. Oh, I forgot to mention earlier, with that Battle of LA movie coming out, the real story, which is known by many ufologists and people interested in the world of flying saucers and such, is a real event. But Jose Escamilla put together a documentary. I can't remember if it's out or not yet, but it's called The Battle of Los Angeles, and it's the real story. And as a matter of fact, I wanted to play a clip from Jose Escamilla's movie, but I didn't get it ready in time. But anyway, check that out. Jose Escamilla, of course, he's been in the field for a very, very long time. New book out there now by a guy named John Alexander. And this guy is planting doubts about UFOs in the world. So I don't know. It seems interesting, but basically he says he's been involved in the scene for a really long time, and what he's come to understand is that it's all just a big hoax, you know. Through all of his research and everything that he's done, he seemed to come to the conclusion that it's all just a silly hoax. And he's a former colonel. In his new book, I don't even want to talk about the new book's title because I'm sick of people coming out and putting out media that is really screwing up a lot of people who want to know what's going down in the world of ufology and exopolitics. Because Colonel Alexander, in my opinion, hasn't done enough research. This is the same old story with this issue. He hasn't done the story. So I don't want to give him the benefit of mentioning his book on there, because even bad pub is good pub. But anyway, he's a retired Army colonel, and in his book he talks about everything from military abductions to mind control, and he's been linked. Many believers believe, that he's been linked to those works. It says that Alexander, who served as a Green Beret in Vietnam, tells a story in his book of the Advanced Theoretical Physics Group, an informal band of government officials who took it upon themselves to find out whether there was a secret federal UFO project. And, of course, in the end, he had no substantial proof because he was barking up all the wrong trees. So he thinks that no government conspiracy is happening to cover up reports on UFOs, but he also insists that enough credible UFO sightings have been documented to warrant a closer look. Yay! True enough, of course. It definitely warrants a closer look. I don't know, maybe the government knows just as much as we do, because there's such an independent movement now looking at the problem. Well, I shouldn't say problem, that's a negative connotation, but the curiosity of unidentified flying objects, both physical and not, it poses enough of a reality check to really help us probe into this. I personally believe that the government knows a hell of a lot more than they're saying, but that's just me and a whole lot of other people. So check it out for yourself. I mean, you do your homework, like I say on every show, and you'll come to your own conclusions. Mine being, the truth is that they're here, and I bet you a good percentage of these unidentified craft are ours, because there's all kinds of block ops projects going on. Like when I spoke to Mike Schratt, a while back on an interview, he was talking about all kinds of projects that he's researched. And that is happening. But there is a percentage, according to a lot of people, eyewitnesses, ex-military officials, government politicians, and so on and so forth, that have other knowledge and information bases that say otherwise. So anyway, there it is. In other news, talking about Open Minds earlier with their IUFC conference, IUFOC, they made it to ABC 15, abc.15.com for the Congress. And actually, Maureen Ellsbury, who works for Open Minds, was quoted in a story that came out on February 9th. So you could check that out for yourself. Just go to openminds.tv, and there's a story there from the daily headlines of February 4th, 2011. And you can see that for yourself, that story. Very interesting stuff. So that's the IUFOC. Maureen Ellsbury there, part of the staff. She basically does all the, she does all the work there, basically. Alejandro does the research, he's the voice, and McClellan delivers the stories and stuff, but she's basically the foundation in which the house sits. It seems like she's always answering phones and getting people connected with subscriptions and real high-end managerial, secretarial kind of stuff to keep it all together for the guys there at Open Minds. So kudos to Maureen, assistant extraordinaire, and she does a lot of good work for that group indeed. There's been an anomalous signal captured by SETI. That's come out on February 6, 2011. And you can see the image for yourself at www.apod.nasa.gov. Check it out. There's the astronomy picture of the day. I have to read you the caption because it's really cool. It's just, basically there's a SETI signal, an anomalous picture of a signal, and it looks like a bunch of static. Blue background. All the static is white, but there's a line going straight up the middle, and it's a different color. It's yellow. And what it says here in the caption is that no one knows for sure what caused the signal. There's a slight possibility that it just might originate from an extraterrestrial intelligence. Now, this came out in the news February 6th. This is just this week that just passed. A search for these signals is ongoing by several groups, including volunteer members of the SETI League. Time labels the vertical axis of the above plot, and frequency marks the horizontal axis. Although this strong signal was never positively identified, astronomers have identified in it many attributes characteristic of a more mundane and ultimate terrestrial origin. In this case, a leading possibility is that the signal originates from an unusual modulation between a GPS satellite and an unidentified Earth-based source. Many unusual signals from space remain unidentified. No signal has yet been strong enough or run long enough for to be considered unambiguously identified as originating from an extraterrestrial intelligence. And here comes the conspiracy theory again, because some people contest that indeed we did have signals in the past. One or at least two that I can think of off the top of my mind here that comes to the mind is the big wow signal in the 70s that they had plotted on their charts, signals coming in that they couldn't fully explain. And that was the biggest proof right there. And then there was another signal that happened maybe in the same decade, or if not the 80s, that was just kind of shoveled under the rug, if my memory serves me correctly. So that's very interesting. Keep an eye on SETI signals. Although Stanton T. Friedman calls it the silly effort to investigate. So we'll see. I've been gabbing for a while. I want to talk about Ronald Reagan really quickly. There was a story that came up on Salon.com from the War Room section in the news that says that Ronald Reagan cared more about UFO than AIDS. Basically because he spoke more about an extraterrestrial presence than he did about AIDS. And I think he only spoke about AIDS when he was approached about it and asked about it. But this UFO thing always happened on his own accord. So here's just a little speech from Reagan on his speech to the UN about extraterrestrials.
Perhaps we need some outside universal threat. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world. And yet, I ask you, is not an alien force already among us? What could be more alien to the universal aspirations of our peoples than war and the threat of war?
So that's one of them. I mean, you guys have probably heard that before. Here's another one. He comments on E.T. alien threat. You probably know this one too. Here it goes.
And your children. I couldn't help at one point in my discussions privately with General Secretary Gorbachev, when you stop to think that we're all God's children wherever we may live in the world, I couldn't help but say to him, just think how easy his task and mine might be in these meetings that we held if suddenly there was a threat to this world from some other species, from another planet, outside in the universe. We'd forget all the little local differences that we have between our countries, and we would find out once and for all that we really are all human beings here on this earth together. Well, I don't suppose we can wait for some alien race to come down and threaten us, but I think that between us we can bring about that realization. Thank you all. God bless you all.
Oh, peace, love, happiness, Ronald Reagan. A good idea. Thanks for those kind words, Mr. President. He did say that a lot, and according to this article, it mentioned that he talked about this threat all the time. I mean, you see this on all the documentaries when Reagan goes off about the ET presence and how it will unite us if there was a threat to civilization. To the apparent consternation of his staff, because he would say this all the time. When his 1987 UN Assembly speech didn't include the alien story, he wrote, quote, "And toward the end, perhaps, I still would like